All right, so here we are right here in part two. Before I started part two, I had to include this clip, this part right here, because this was actually a good part, and he did a good job breaking this down. And it was actually kind of funny too, so I kind of wanted to include it. So let's go.
Hey YouTube, thanks for tuning in to Opening Up the Scriptures. See? I invite you to Opening Up the Scriptures.
Oh snap, son! Oh snap!
He even looked like a fucking. He looked like a Compton Mexican. Like he really.
Oh shit! All right, let's keep going.
But watch him. Watch the Bible say that Christ is a black man. His New Testament literally tells him Christ is a black man, and he's gonna say, "Nah, Christ is not black."
And this is just to go to show how deeply rooted this shit is. And we're gonna go into the culture to show you that it is a part of their culture, and we can prove it. But let's just see in real life how it transpires. Not only how it transpires, but how they try to demean you, right? And how they try to and how how deluded these motherfuckers really are. So let's get into it.
They don't like black people because they're not us. God's holy word, the holy Bible. No. They ask baby Christians or people that haven't read their Bibles and ask them a simple question. Anybody can answer this. What people of the earth have hair that looks like wool, the texture and the feel of wool? That's common sense, right? Only African American people that come. See?
Now that's true. So he can keep it a buck there, and he understands this. But let's see how far this nigga's delusion goes.
Who? Only African American people, only niggers, right? We're the only ones who fit the characteristics of the book, and he knows that. And watch what he's gonna do. From an African descent. Number 2, verse 15 says, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they were burned in a furnace. They ask you again, who has a skin color and hair texture that's white like wool and are dark skinned? Everyone knows this. People of African descent. So then they say, you know what? Jesus Christ has to be African American.
Right?
They misinterpret the Bible.
Oh snap! So he's gonna use another verse in the Bible to try to fill his delusion. So this goes with motherfuckers handpicking and picking and choosing exactly to try to make something make sense that's not there. So let, let's let's see what this man has to say.
First of all, white does not refer to the color white. It refers to a picture of God's holiness and his wisdom.
Now that's true. You see, the script, and even if you can read the scriptures, no matter if you adhere to the Holy Bible or not, but you see, it provides wisdom. That's a wise statement to make. And you would see, and you would think after what he just said, that he's about to prove that this, the man of the Bible is a so-called black man. But once again, let's let him finish.
That's true. His feet of brass, as if they were burned in a furnace. This is a reference to divine judgment.
This is. Oh snap! Hey. So the wisdom thing, he was on point, right? But how could it be referring to divine judgment whatsoever when it's literally saying it's referring to a person? They're saying a man and they're describing his features. So let's see his breakdown of this. Yeah, you can't make this shit up though, son.
Nigga said it goes from giving the physical appearance. So he gets it right. White as in his countenance, his aura.
Yeah, that's facts. And that's why I said that's true. That's what it's referring to. But anyway, let's get back to it.
Right? And then it turns around as giving a description of his actual color of his flesh. Right? Not the light shining around him, but the actual color of his flesh. It's telling you what it is, giving you a physical characteristic. And then this nigga, this motherfucker goes and says, nah, it's not no longer talking about physical characteristics. It's talking about divine judgment. Do you see how much they hate niggas? They hate niggas so much they'll twist the word, the clear word of the book, to fit their delusion. Because as long as it's not a Negro on top, they're happy.
Yeah, and their picture of Jesus is actually Jesus. His name is Jesus, and he's a white man, but he's Mexican. And they understand. And but the one that the one that they got up is a white guy. You know. So this goes to show you exactly who their allegiance is and who they are and who and how they identify.
Understand, they're not our fucking people. They need to stop saying the word nigga, and we need to start slapping hot fire out of them for doing it. Because that's the only way they're gonna learn. Seriously.
Yeah, and I would agree to the most part, but also too, you can't just fight everyone. You can't just fight everyone. You know, we'd have to. You can't just fight everyone. It's going to be up to us to be able to teach these motherfuckers first. You're gonna have to be able to teach them first, and if they then tend to keep calling you that out of and you know, if they keep calling you that, and you've already called them out and checked them on it, that's when you got to bust their ass because that's when they don't have any respect for you whatsoever.
Because I got them on my page.
Yeah, and also too, I have a what he's going to say. He has people on his page arguing him down about why Latinos and the other races should be allowed to say the word nigga, right? And I have an entire recorded conversation with a modern Latino breaking him off on why he don't need to be saying the word nigga. And I'll add that on here too. That'll be probably what part three, part four. But anyway.
With me, trying to justify why they can say the word nigga. That's the same shit white people do, if you notice. When a black person tells you they're uncomfortable with you saying something to them, you should probably stop doing it if you have respect for them. But because you don't.
Exactly. That's my thing. You have to call them out on it. You have to check them, and you have to teach them. You have to educate them because they are ignorant. They don't even understand their own history. And you understand? This is why the Most High put us here. You understand? Salt of the earth, baby.
Have respect for them, you're going to argue with them about saying a word that you know you shouldn't say. You know your parents don't like you saying the word nigga, so why would you say the word nigga? You understand? It's time to start whooping some ass.
Agreed. But anyway, I'll see you on part two.
Waste your time with me. All right, so here we are. I don't know if this is part 3, 4, 5, but this is the George Lopez joke, right? So there was a statement, and I even posted this on my story, and that got I don't want to say it got a lot of feedback because it didn't get a lot of feedback, but there was one particular, um, you know, conversation that I had with a so-called quote unquote modern day Latino. And there was one conversation that was held with a modern so-called quote unquote Latino, right? And it was about this entire situation here, right? With so-called quote unquote Latinos, or who we identify as today as the modern Latinos, right? Making a so-called quote unquote black joke, right? And we know that he's a stand-up comedian, but us as so-called black people, once again, we like to claim the modern day Latinos, right? And claim that they've been a part of the struggle, and that we tend to associate a lot of our issues with their issues. So of course, when it comes to certain jokes, since we like to identify, you know, and allow you guys to intermingle in our communities via the 1960 civil rights movement, right? With all of this going on, if there is an inside joke, how come you guys don't put us on? So that's the thing. So he told a black joke, and the black lady got offended, and let's see his reaction. And we're gonna go into detail about what happened in this interaction with me and someone on a social media page of mine.
Till 2 rules in the fucking Latinos family. Don't marry somebody black, and don't park in front of our house.
Now, the thing is, right, when he says there's two things that you don't do, right? They understand that it's a joke, right? It's clearly a joke, but truth is told. There's a little bit of truth in every joke. So I was speaking on Limpieza de Sangre and Mejorar la Raza, and this is one thing that I was talking about. This is a part of the culture of Limpieza de Sangre, of the purity of the blood. You don't bring a black man home because that's going to taint the bloodline. Limpieza de Sangre literally means purity of the blood. So if you bring a Negro or, a nigga home, that child is most likely going to come out a so-called Negro. Right? Now, once again, since we like to claim these people, if it's just a joke, right? If it's just a joke, why is it so personal? Why does he get so upset? Now let's see how it plays out.
Sit your fucking ass down. Sit your fucking ass down. I'm talking, bitch. Sit your fucking ass down. You paid to see a show. Sit your ass down.
And right, she did pay to see a show, but she also wanted to know what the joke was. What was so funny? Everyone was laughing, but we didn't find that funny. So tell us what the joke is, right? So she gets up trying to get an explanation, and he goes off on her. You understand? And you see exactly, he probably has a little bit of liquor in the system or whatever the case may be, right? But you see exactly how they feel about you. They tell a racist joke, right? And then when you try to get clarification, they get upset and flip out on you. Call you a black bitch, or whatever the case may be, right? We dealt with this with Santa Maria, going to Santa Maria and Sierra Linda High School. Motherfuckers telling jokes, and then when motherfuckers get offended, oh, shut up, you're black. Or, you see exactly where the true allegiance stands. So this was just going to be real quick. I was just providing this for some pretext, for the context, inside the context of the conversation that we were having. So let's get to it. So I'm not going to be including the name of the person's Instagram on here, and I'll be crossing out his face too. But this is a conversation that I had with someone who clearly is a modern day Latino, right? Who identify as a modern quote unquote Latino. And he was offended, by trying to stand up and say something on behalf of the Latinos. So I spoke out in regards to the video that I just showed you guys that I just played just now. So I responded to that, talking about Limpieza de Sangre, Mejorar la Raza, and things of that nature. And this is what he has to say. So he says, "Now hold up. I agree with some of the shit you're saying, and I'm 100% with you on Latinos should not be able to say the N-word. And it's not that you guys aren't able to say it. You can feel free to say it, but it's just repercussions that comes along when you say that. And when historically, you guys were a culture that carries out the customs of the conqueror, which is the so-called quote unquote white man. So, you would understand where the reason comes from if you understand your history. But anyways." He goes on to say, "To me, they look stupid as fuck. But as for the other shit, I legit haven't heard of that. It's not a cultural thing, but yes, we have some racist Latinos. I will not deny that at all. So if it's not cultural, but you understand that it's in the Latino community, how can you say it's not cultural? Right? If you guys have racist Latinos in your culture, right, how is that not cultural? If that's the one thing that I've shown, right? And I'm going to go ahead and show you guys anyway. So we're going to disprove that." And he goes on to say, "But we also have a big number of Latinos that helped and stood by you guys when justice wasn't served," which is cap. Because during the 1960s and the 1970s via civil rights movement, you guys didn't stand there next to us. All right? You guys were not stripped of your culture. You guys didn't stand there as we got stripped of our culture, and they handed you guys our culture. You understand? So, no, you didn't. And anyway, we'll go into that a little later. He goes on to say, "But I don't remember when so-called quote-unquote black people were beating up on elders trying to sell their corn on the street. But I'm not going to sit here and just say black people are this and that when it was just a few groups. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. We have bad people in every race," which is true. There is bad people in every race. But when you try to validate it by saying that there was a small group of so-called quote-unquote black people attacking someone trying to sell corn, no. When I can point to actual cultures and customs, right, which are open,
to denigrating so-called quote-unquote black people in your culture. So if I disprove that, then what? Then what are we going to go on to say? But it's funny how he fails to mention that, we went to school together, and what did you guys do when there was something actually involving your people that swept the nation? When I'm talking about Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman, who was a Latino. Were you guys standing there with us hand in hand during those, or did you guys speak out? I don't even remember you guys speaking out. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Matter of fact, disregard on a worldwide sweep. What exactly did you do when it was in front of your face, though? And I'm talking about you in particular, Dante. You can tell me if I'm lying, because I had you in math class, right? When Ernesto was cracking racist black jokes, what did you do? Who was the one to speak up? It wasn't you guys. You never said anything. You was laughing. You never stood up and said, "Oh, that's racist, bro. That's not funny." Shout out to Miss Robles, because she was the only one who ever said anything. She didn't say much, but she was the only one to say something. Dante, you can tell me if I'm lying if you're watching this. What did you do when this was going on in front of your face? Talking about, we have a big number of Latinos that helped and stood by you guys when justice wasn't served. When? What are you talking about? Because when there was clear and blatant racism that took place in your presence, because we all went to the same school. Once again, Dante, you can tell me if I'm lying. When it took place in your presence, when there was something going on in your presence that was clearly racist, did you partake or did you step up? So what are you talking about? When did you guys stand up and hold? When did you guys stand by us when justice wasn't served? When? Because you didn't with Trayvon Martin. I remember you guys used to everybody used to turn racist whenever Floyd Mayweather was fighting, though. I remember that. And I know, Dante, once again, you can tell me if I'm lying. Trey, you can tell me if I'm lying. Any of you niggas who went, anyways.
But let's go to the next part of the conversation. Now, in response to his statement, what I said was, it says you can't, but what I meant to say was you can. So you can agree with me when I say, you can agree with what I say, but then you turn around and say that it's not cultural when I have proof of it existing in your culture or in the culture. And the group, and you can't compare a few groups of people jumping old Mexicans over some corn to what you guys have done. And you experienced it firsthand. I'm not making this shit up. I grew up with y'all my entire life. This is someone, once again, I went to school with, middle school, high school, elementary school. Y'all would always tell racist jokes about blacks that weren't even jokes, just straight up racist. We was called roaches, niggers, mayates. When the lights go off, where'd the mirror go? And I'm light-skinned. When did y'all stand up for us? And this is me calling this bullshit out. When did y'all stand up for us when it was taking place? Same thing to the teachers who were in place. What were they doing to stop it? Right? So I can't say for sure that y'all stood by us, but I can say via the civil rights movement, right, that so-called quote-unquote blacks stood by the modern quote-unquote Latinos that we identify today and allowed you guys into our communities and even earn rights. We allowed you guys people to piggyback. We allowed you guys people to piggyback off of what we were getting our asses kicked for. This is a fact. We were being hosed down. We were facing housing and school and discrimination acts. Being Brown versus Board of Education, we were being lynched. We were not allowed to mix. We were getting dogs sicked on us. We were not allowed to learn. We were stripped of our history and culture. We even put out Jennifer Lopez. So if we're being, a buck, we put her on the radio stations. There would be no Daddy Yankee. There would be no Pitbull if it wasn't for Nando Boom. We have continually stood by you guys, and it's clear. Can you show me examples of you guys or y'all standing and fighting with us? No, because the blacks in Mexico are discriminated against. Now let's see what he has to say. He then goes on to say that I didn't say I agree with completely everything you said, and of course, you're never going to completely agree with everything that I said, especially because you don't understand your own history. So this is why I'm here. I'm Papa right now, all right? He says, I said some of the shit. It's really not a cultural thing. So he says it's really not a cultural thing, even though I'm showing him and I gave proof of it existing in their culture. Right? He goes on to say how I'm Latino as fuck and I've never heard of that shit, question mark. Well, that's your problem because once again, you guys don't understand your own history. This is why you're having this conversation with the Aboriginal Azteca or the Mayan. You understand? He goes on to say, you're going to tell me about my own culture with my parents being wetbacks? Yes, I'm telling you about your own culture. Yes, that's clearly what the fuck I'm doing because clearly you don't understand it. Which is why you reached out, goofy. So he says, fuck no, all these Mexicans ain't teaching their kids that, so that doesn't make it a cultural thing. Well, it doesn't mean, well, just for you to, not be raised in a household where your parents don't teach you to not like blacks, right? If they don't make it open to her, oh, no, we don't bring niggers home, then what are you even trying to get at? No one, I've shown that it exists in your culture, and I will continue to show it once again. Don't worry. He says, again, I've seen some Mexicans that think their shit don't stink, but again, a lot of people are like that from different races, which is true. And again, I agree with some of the shit that you say, but Puerto Ricans have their own shit going on too. Puerto Ricans are are Negros. So Nando Boom is from Panama, and his language is what? Well, that's the thing. Are you associating? Nando Boom is from Panama, and it doesn't matter what language he speaks because the land of Mexico, right, was conquered. You associate with the conquerors, which is why the language of Mexico, which is why the language of Spanish doesn't even come from Mexico. So what the fuck are you identifying with? The language that he speaks is a slave language, Spanish. It comes from Spain. He goes on to say Spanish, making him what? Afro-Latino. Afro meaning what? Dummy. It's a fucking phenotype. Afro, the type of hair. You can't be Afro and Latino. Latino means mixed blood. Afro means Aboriginal. Negro. You can't be a Negro Latino. It doesn't make sense. You're identifying as two different races and two different slave races. Not even slave races, but yeah, two slave races at that. Right? So Nando Boom being from Panama, he's a Negro. So, okay, look at Anthony Joshua. Right? Look at all the Negroes over on the other side of the continent who speak an entirely different language. What does that have to do with anything? And you're proving my point. Once again, you guys identify with the conquerors. Spanish is not a language that comes from Mexico, you fucking idiot. So anyways, Afro-Latinos are everywhere, even in Mexico. Yes, they are. Because, once again, they were conquered. So, yeah, blacks had it real hard, but don't sit there and listen. This is what I told you guys, that they like to, play around. They like to play this card. And if you're not educated enough, then you can fall for it. If you don't study enough, then you can fall for this bullshit too. Listen to what he says. Yeah, blacks had it real hard, but don't sit here and act and think. Don't sit there and think our natives didn't get raped and killed off either by Europeans. Well, if the Europeans/Spaniards came over here, right? If the Europeans and the Spaniards came over to this side of the continent, right? And they spoke the language of Spanish, and you guys call yourself Mexicans or Latino, which means Latin, mixed with Latin blood or mixed race, what are you talking about? You guys didn't get killed off by the Europeans because you guys aren't the natives. If you look at the natives and the Azteca and the Mayans, right? Okay, let's talk about the natives and the Mayans, right? And the Azteca. There's a derogatory term that you guys use towards our people. You guys don't identify yourselves as the Aztecs and Mayans because you guys call us the Mayates. Now, if we break down the etymology of that word, what are they calling us? A Mayate, a Maya. They're calling us the Mayans. So what are you talking about? How can it be of mixed blood? How can you speak the language of the conqueror and be native to the land? It doesn't make sense. You understand? Especially if you don't have the original customs of the Aboriginals. You guys carry out the customs of the conqueror. That's a fact. He goes on to say, I never said that shit to you. I wasn't raised like that. I was always taught that we were supposed to stick together, but I get it. Other people weren't taught that shit. Agreed. But anyways, even if you didn't say that to me, what did you do when the jokes were happening? Did you step in and say, nah, that's not cool, bro, that's not funny, that's actually racist? Or did you laugh and participate in the degradation?